It's just the second Friday of the W, but we've got a full slate of games tonight on Hoop Talks. Hello, everybody. I'm Noor Zainab, the WNBA queen to my left, perhaps to your right, Karina Mustafa, and then, holy cow, we've got Justin Booty. Breaking
What are you
news.
talking? Whoa.
The WNBA, guys.
What are you guys
Holy.
talking about, man? I know ball.
You know ball?
Yeah. You
know
don't know your left.
balls?
You
I
don't
don't know ball.
You don't know your left and right though, but I know ball.
She meant her left
You
camera
know what?
right.
You know what? I don't need your logic right now. Just laugh at the joke.
That's
accept
right, because
it.
the only thing
Stop
you
being
need
so
to...
logical.
May I continue
Yes.
as the host? Thank you. The only thing you need to know tonight, and only thing you need to know tonight, is we have two WNBA games on.
Yes.
The first game is going to be the Washington Mystics taking on the Chicago Sky at 8 p.m. Eastern. Was that right timing for you, Justin? Am I doing the right thing here?
It says so. It's at 8 p.m. So yeah, I guess
Yeah,
you're right.
Eastern, right? Thanks. Didn't want
Good
to mess
job.
that
Do you know
up.
how I feel right now? I feel like Justin and I are about to like have like a boxing match, and you're like
The ringleader?
ref, yeah.
The ref.
Yeah.
Should we touch gloves?
No, let me start the story, okay? So the Washington Mystics, they beat the Liberty. Sorry, Karina. They beat them earlier this week,
okay.
and then they took on. They actually dropped 2 games against the Connecticut Sun, but now they take on against the undefeated Chicago Sky for their home opener. So Karina, I'm going to ask you first and foremost, because you are our WNBA queen. So what do they need to do here, the Mystics, to get back in the win column?
Yeah, I think the Mystics have, like, first of all, that game against the Liberty showed that they don't care about any kind of super team narrative. They're like, we're coming in with our own thing. They looked very, very strong. And then they played against Connecticut, who I think is on the same tier as the Washington Mystics this season, actually, where they've got a very, very good core and they've got great pieces around them. And so they may not be referred to as a super team, but I still think they're very much in the conversation for doing damage in the playoffs. And what I saw from the Mystics against the Connecticut Sun was that they started out both games actually quite well, but the Sun found a way to neutralize them heading into the second half both times, and they were able to go on a run to end off the game, and the Mystics ended up losing both of them, even if the games were like still tightly contested. So I think tonight against the Chicago Sky, they've got to figure out a way to get past the Chicago defense, because the Sky have been working on their defense all throughout preseason. It's something that they've really harped on to start the season, and we've seen it already. I mean, like on the Chicago side, like not to go on for too long, but like Dana Evans, I think, has been really, really good so far. Elizabeth Williams as well, who has gotten the deflections belt from Coach James Wade both times. They have like a little thing that goes on in the locker room after. But yeah, so I think the biggest test for them now tonight is going to be playing against the Sky defense.
Yeah.
well-
Look. Were you gonna say something?
Jinx.
Yes. Here we go. He just wants the question. So we're going to see a battle tonight between
I
Kalia
think you had
Copper.
some thoughts. Did you
I
have
had some.
thoughts?
I had
Yeah,
some
yeah.
rebuttals, but that's okay.
Oh, do you?
No,
Yeah,
that's
well,
okay. I
you can go
forgot
ahead.
them
You can
now.
go
I
ahead.
forgot them now.
It's all good. It's gonna be the same line of the questioning that I asked
Okay.
Karina, but just different
Okay,
to you. If you
thanks.
just let me ask the questions. No
Hurry up and
problem.
ask the question then.
So we're going to see a battle between Kalia Copper and Elena Del Dunn tonight.
Yes.
Who do you got winning out of those two?
Well, the Mystics are a more talented team on paper than the Chicago Sky, right? But I think the Mystics, they've shot the ball pretty poorly this year, Karina. I believe they're shooting, what does it say, 39% shooting and then only 26% from three-point range, right? That's not going to win you any basketball games. And the Sky's defense, as you mentioned, has been very good. But what was interesting to me was that the Sky, that there's 2-0, they're going to go home, it's their home opener, but they're 4-point dogs to the Washington Mystics, which is kind of confusing to me. So it got me thinking, why? Why is that, right? Again, the talent on the Mystics is much
pondering.
higher. Yeah, I'm pondering it, right? I do think the Mystics win this game because, like you said, it's been a rough start for them. I think they get back on track. I think it's the home opener for the Sky. They got into a really good start this year. There's going to be ample emotions. And we always find out in any sport, whenever you have a home opener, there's that huge energy in the beginning, but then after it kind of lulls down. And I think the Mystics can take advantage of that because, again, they are the more talented team. I find that they will kind of regress back to the mean or up to the mean shooting wise. So I think the Mystics will win this game.
And I think even just before we move on, like on the shooting argument of it, the Washington Mystics are very much a team that likes to play in the paint. Like they have some shooters, but they have a couple of shooters, but I think like that's where they really thrive. And so I think that's also kind of like why they struggled a bit against a defense like the Connecticut Sun, because they have a very, very strong set of defensive players. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be maybe like a bit of an easier test against Chicago, but it's still going to be pretty difficult.
Yeah.
Well, on Chicago's side, we actually saw them lose Candace Parker last season, and they come into this season already undefeated. So it's kind of crazy to see, already they've lost their big piece. She went on to make a super team in Vegas, but now they're completely undefeated. So what has impressed you so far from this team? I know we're only a weekend, Karina, but I want to hear from you.
Yeah, to me, I'm also kind of happy that Chicago came to Canada and they kind of practiced, because I was able to get more of an insider perspective of what they've been practicing. Like I kind of touched on before, Dana Evans, they've really been focusing on her on the defensive side. She is averaging almost 8 points per game within these two first games, which is a career high for her. But I think she's been practicing full court pressing, which is very annoying to play against if you're playing against her. Just have her literally right in your face as you're trying to dribble up the court. But she's been really good. I think they're very cohesive together as a unit, because Ka is going to get her buckets. She's going to lead the way. But because there's so many opportunities for other players on this team to score, I think they've been able to be successful so far and get the wins that they were supposed to. Because I think their 2 wins came against the Mercury and the Lynx, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, because the Lynx was their first game. So those are 2 matchups where you need to get those out of the way if you want to get as many wins this season as possible, especially after losing Candace Parker and Courtney Vandersloot as well, who is now on the New York Liberty.
And also the other thing is Chicago's defense is forcing 19 turnovers a game.
That's amazing.
That's a very, very good recipe for success. And if they can capitalize on that, again, we're talking about the NBA, the first blow, we're talking about the Miami Heat turning the ball over a bunch. That was conducive to them losing. If the Chicago Sky's defense, can force 19 turnovers again, they're going to win this game.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge recipe for success, and credit to their defense. It's been on fire this year so far.
Well, lucky for us, there's also another game on tonight. Now it's going to be one WNBA game night. At 10 p.m., we're going to see the Dallas Wings take on the Seattle Storm. And Karina, the Dallas Wings and the Storm go head-to-head after a week off from their first season. They haven't really played much so far. The Wings beat the Dream, right, recently. And while the Storm, they've lost to the Aces. So who would you say has more of an edge tonight to take this win after not playing for a little bit of a while?
It's always so weird to me the way the WNBA schedule is set up, because sometimes teams will play every other night, how normally we do, but then sometimes teams will literally get a week off. So they both played their home openers last
Saturday,
weekend.
right?
Yeah, last weekend. So each of them, the Dallas Wings and the Seattle Storm, have both only played one game, and they've both played very different games. So the Dallas Wings and the Atlanta Dream, that was a very close matchup where everything went right for the Dallas Wings, and that's why they were able to get the win. And then the Storm just were kind of unlucky because their first game was against the defending champs, the Las Vegas Aces, who looked amazing and super dominating in that first game. So it was quite unfortunate for them. But I think I would still give the edge to Dallas. I think what we saw from the Wings' tops players in the last game, from Arike, from Satu, from Tiara McCowan, from Natasha Howard even, they all were posting up great numbers. Everything was flowing for them. The defense was going well. And because they were able to crawl out of that game, I think that they'll be able to beat Seattle tonight. They'll be able to beat Seattle tonight. I can't speak.
Did you get that?
I got it. Yeah, I got that. I got what you said.
The 6.5 point spread's kind of heavy for me. Right, so I think I would take, if I was going to bet on this game, I would take the Wings money line, but I'd put my money on the Storm plus 6.5. But both these teams are not world beaters in the W this year, right? They're both kind of average to slightly below average teams. Now, you did mention that the Wings have had, they have 3 double-digit scores this season. That's impressive. But again, the shooting numbers haven't been there. Again, it's still early in the season, so don't dive too deep into the shooting numbers with teams, because once they find out, get into the rhythm,
it's a small sample size.
It's a small sample size, and as the season goes along, you'll see them again. Second time I'm going to use this word, but regress up to the mean, right? Jewel Lloyd, of course, is having another stellar season for the Seattle Storm, but this is a team that's gone through a lot of change. Sue Bird's retired. Of course, Brianna Stewart has not moved on. They're, after years of being one of the preeminent teams in the W, they're going through a situation now where they're kind of rebuilding, retooling. So this is going to be kind of a Seattle Storm fans probably have to understand this is going to be growing pains, exactly, right? So I would say that the Dallas Wings should win this game just because they're playing against an inferior team, but it'll be a lot closer than what people are expecting, I think.
As you said, I'm going to piggyback off that. You said that both these teams are not really going to be your superstar powerhouses contenders this season. So, Karina, as our Roundhouse WNBA expert, what would you say is their ceiling? Let's start with the Dream. What do you think their ceiling could be this season? Yeah, sorry, the WNBA. Yeah.
No, it's okay. They beat the Dream, so that's why you had that in your head. But I think honestly, I have the Dallas Wings could either make or miss the playoffs. Like that's where I'm kind of struggling with them right now because
they're kind of they're in the middle. They're a fringe team.
Mid-tier. They could either make that top 8 or they could just fall out because the way that I see them making the playoffs is if a game like the one against the Dream happens multiple times where you're getting those double-digit scores from your main players. And you got to avoid injuries too because I know Tierra McCowan is listed as questionable tonight. She's a very important player for them. They're going to have to learn to play without her a little bit because I think she's leaving for some competition in a couple of weeks. But I think for them, staying healthy and finding ways for everybody to get their buckets is going to be the way that the Dallas Wings make the playoffs. If they make the playoffs, they will squeak in that final 8th spot. I don't see it being higher than that. And then the same with the Storm. I'm more leaning that they might miss the playoffs. It really depends on like the other bottom fringe teams how they do. Because like the thing with the WNBA is like because it's the top 8 out of the 12 teams. That bottom spot, like those bottom 4 or 5 spots are very, very close sometimes. And it's just literally just a matter of like one game at the end of the season for some players, for some teams to make it into the playoffs.
Well, let's face it, guys. The most impressive team so far has been the team that was pegged to be the team this year, the Las Vegas Aces. And look, I love offense. I love points. They're averaging 99 points a game so far this season. Again, small sample size, but 99 points. Jackie Young is averaging 26.5 points. And guys, she's shooting 65% from the field.
Look at this. We're gonna make him an Aces fan.
Talk
Are you
about
getting
efficiency.
on my bandwagon with
Talk
me?
about efficiency.
There's no room.
Shout out to Chelsea Gray, 7 assists a game, a true point guard right there.
Oh.
Look,
My God! Don't even take mine.
but also
Don't take my
as a team, they're averaging 20 assists per game. So
Yeah.
they share the ball, they score the ball, right? They're 43.5 rebounds a game. Look, it's a wrap. The Las Vegas Aces are the team to beat in the
wondering to
WNBA.
myself, I'm like, okay,
right?
you've got Asia Wilson, you have Jackie Young, you have Kelsey Plum, you just brought on Candace Parker, you have I'm missing somebody. Chelsea Gray. How did I miss Chelsea
Yeah,
Gray? You
I
got
just
5.
mentioned-
Look, did I?
I just mentioned
I
it,
know.
yeah,
Okay, that's
yeah,
my
yeah.
woman. Of course.
Okay.
I know who Chelsea
I'm just
Gray
saying.
is. I want her to lead the NBA. I want
on
her to
my
lead the
fantasy
world. Yeah, exactly. She could be a quarterback, to be honest with you. But seeing, that's your starting 5. Who's got a chance?
It's a wrap.
And I
Jack.
think honestly, like even now that we're on like the topic of the Aces, like they just played against the LA Sparks, and honestly, like they were losing in the first half, which I turned on the game and I was like, whoa, what is going on? But then they were able to find their way back into the game and win. And Jackie Young, to me, I'm glad you said her name because she's been absolutely impressive to start the season for them.
She has, like she said, she's been playing 30 and a half minutes.
She's so fast.
Right.
Like
She's fast, the
you
speed.
can't stay in front of her.
And she's
on
also
defense.
averaging 2.5 steals a game too.
Yeah, no,
Right? Like she's doing it on
yeah.
both ends of the court. And I think
the whole
that's
team
super
is very
impressive.
efficient. They understand. They also get each other because they all understand their roles in that team as well. But Karina, you are the champion of the New York Liberty, who also are about to be another super team in the W. If little do we know, this really could be the finals where we see the Aces take on the Liberty. If that were the case, and let's say the Aces, I'm not going to chalk anything for the Liberty up to anything right now because it's very new. They're also gelling with their new members,
Yeah.
figuring out what they're supposed to look like. So a weekend doesn't mean anything to me. They really could very well be in the finals. So let's say you see the Aces and the Liberty at some point where they're going to face off each other. Who and how and why would you give the edge to one of the other teams?
Right now, I have to give the edge to Vegas. I
They're just deeper.
think
They're a deeper squad.
they're
But
deeper.
Liberty
but
also is very good.
They're
There
good.
are a lot of
No, for
good
sure.
They're very like they're both deep teams, but I think Las Vegas has a system where if one of your star players is struggling, you have 4 or 5 other players that are able to step up and put more than 20 points a game. Whereas I feel like with the Liberty, their most recent win where Breanna Stewart went off for 45 points in 3 quarters. That was great. She had 45 points, but what if she didn't have 45 points?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just like, it's stuff like that that makes me wonder, whereas like you look at the Aces, nobody had 40 points. Everybody had 20 plus.
a
And that
balanced
to
attack.
me is more important than having like one person doing it all, because God forbid what happens if there's an injury or something happens, someone falls out of the rotation, and you
we've
start
seen that.
struggling. If teams start targeting their defense on your star player, what happens then, right?
Yeah.
So like, and I think the Liberty still have many people who can score, but they just need more time to practice
for
getting the
sure.
ball to everybody.
I mean, when you look at the shooting statistics, from the New York Liberty, Sabrina Ionescu, I know your favorite.
Ionescu.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Ionescu.
I'm here to educate you.
Yeah, it's okay. She's shooting.
That's a Romanian thing. Don't worry.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't. I figured. She's shooting 35% from the field right now. Again,
She was coming off injury.
exactly.
As well.
Coming off
Yeah.
injury. That's what I was going to say. It's easy to get blinded by the stats and the numbers early on. I do think what the Liberty have right now, just give it time. Give it time. Just they have acquired
They're
Brianna
also,
Stewart.
I would say, a little bit of a younger team,
Yeah.
right? Like where the Aces, they have a lot of established players and they're surrounded by a lot of veteran people
Yeah.
too, where they can kind of keep themselves together. But you're looking at Sabrina, like she's also like she's younger. So you're watching these people, like I think that could be their future with the Aces. Like they could easily be that team, not even probably this season, but it's just that they have to work out their kinks.
Absolutely.
But once they work those out, they're going to be a force to be reckoned
Like,
with.
we see it in the NBA as well all the time. Whenever you acquire a big name player, a superstar caliber player onto a team, there's that growing period,
Not
right?
the same because different for Candace Parker, different for the NBA, different for the
Yeah,
WNBA. It has not
again,
worked out for the NBA.
we've
Ask
it's
Kevin
worked
Durant,
out-
ask Kyrie
I was
Irving.
gonna say Kevin Durant was kind
Has
of the
not
first
worked out.
player that went to my mind where I was like,
Okay, well, think about when LeBron went to LA, went back to Cleveland,
all
went to
comes back
Miami.
to
LeBron.
It all comes
either.
back. Like, or look, when Kyrie went to Dallas,
Just
that
with
hasn't worked
LeBron, we're
out.
going to end the show right here because we're not going to hear about LeBron on the WNBA show.
Okay.
I'm super sorry. But guys, don't forget, there's also 5 other games on this weekend, 2 Saturday, 3 on Sunday. You're actually going to have a full day of games. Starts at 3 p.m., ends way late, probably at midnight. I'm not sure where you live, but do the math. I'm the Eastern End code. And we'll be back again next week to recap what happened this weekend with none other than Karina Mustafa here on Hoop Talks.